My name's Simon Cocking, and I'm the senior editor for Irish Tech News, and I'm also a DC For Bees ambassador as well, which I think is very complementary to some of the stories that we cover.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks for joining us. And what got you interested in being a DCs For Bees ambassador in the first place?
Yeah, look, so it's a nice thing that with Irish Tech News, we've kind of been on an interesting journey over the last couple of years where we've looked to do more on green tech, clean tech, and tech for good. And then there's been some interesting tech companies that look to monitor beehives. And so if you're going to talk about sustainability, you know, there's been a massive fall in the number of bees, honeybees, but not just honeybees. And as a vast majority of our plants and crops are fertilized by bees, if we don't have bees, then we have a serious problem for humans. So this isn't just a wildlife pitch. Bees are actually integral to our own survival too.
Absolutely. And for you personally, what is it that you'd like to achieve? If you had a magic bee wand at the end of this process or this program of being a DCs For Bees ambassadors, what would you like to see us achieve as a group?
Yeah, look, I mean, so a bit like the Temple Street Techies for Good, I think the ability to raise awareness through business, but then obviously, like, no one is just business. We're all business plus people, and therefore, I think Ireland's doing very well for data hosting, but potentially that also helps to shine a light on other interrelated issues. So therefore, I see it as, you know, we're not just profiling people who've spent their life dealing with plants and animals. We're profiling people who realize that it's important. And I think with climate change and all these issues, it's when these things go mainstream that we can have an impact very quickly now, and we need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. And if you are in a beautiful location right now, right down on the west coast of Ireland. So I'm assuming you're not in the middle of a big city. So is there anything that you've got in terms of tips or tricks that we should use, or I should use, somebody who's not as knowledgeable as you on this topic, something that we can do today to help?
So look, I mean, so what we realized, first of all, we thought to do stuff to help bees, we need to get beehives. But at the same time, we have small kids and even a baby. But then we realized that of the 99 bee species in Ireland, 77 are solitary bees, and you've got bumblebees as well. So actually, if you plant flowers, the flowers help to look after all the bees. So even if you don't have beehives, which is obviously a step that not everyone's going to do, and particularly if you're, you know, we moved from Dublin, so if you're in an urban area, people do that, but it's another decision to make. But it turns out that if you plant flowers, one, they look lovely, two, you get all the visual benefits, but it's just giving a wider range of food sources for bees, and then the bees go between the flowers and the crops that need to be pollinated as well. So therefore, so back where we lived in Donaghmede, there were calendula. Calendula is either yellow or orange, and it always produces seeds, and we've had it in flower for about 3 months here, and we grew them in Dublin as well. So you can legitimately do seed saving and then just create wildflower areas to grow flowers. And obviously, visually, we win on that one, but it's giving the bees a wider range of food sources. And that's not just a rural thing. I mean, like, we did it in Dublin, and I know that you can do it anywhere, even in a window box, while having the fun of either growing a sunflower or many other things. So I think that's a very simple thing. And then the other simple thing is if you do nothing and you allow wildflowers to come up, that's more sources of pollination for bees too. So I think it's the kind of thing where it can have a massive impact, but you don't actually need to do a lot to achieve this. You just need to creatively enable the space to allow the flowers to come through. And it's a bit like poppies. If you have broken ground, poppies come through. So sometimes it's doing very little enables flowers to come through. So that's why I think this is a very positive project, because it can achieve a lot very quickly.
Brilliant. I have to say, seed harvesting is my thing this year. Like, I feel like I'm going to get arrested one of these days. Every time I walk through a forest or a garden, I am collecting the seed pods and I'm bringing them home and I'm saving them and I'm planting them. And it's just like, it's so much fun as well to see actually what grows, because so much doesn't. But it's a lovely thing to do. And it's great to see what comes out of it all.
And I think if you do it at the right time, like you do it after the flower's gone and you're deadheading, and it actually enables the plant to create more flowers. So when you do it in the right way, the plant's actually kind of almost appreciative of being deadheaded. So therefore, you know, it can be helpful to the flowers and to us.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And in terms of you guys and your organization, like what is it that you've got? Have you done anything yet, or like have you got anything in the pipeline that you're planning to do around this, specifically around the DCs for Bees program?
Okay, so yeah, so before talking to you, I kind of typed bees back into the search engine for the website, and it's quite nice that over the last 2 years, if you were to do the same on Irish Tech News, you'll see that we've interviewed urban beekeepers, we've interviewed people that are trying to create honey in every postcode in Dublin, and we've interviewed people who are just mad about bees. And like there's one guy, Sam Drogue, in the US, and they've got blue bees, green bees, and just it opened my eyes that there's such a wider range when we talk about bees than just honeybees. And even that, you know, like if you know it's simple, but if you don't realize that, they're beautiful and they're very interesting. And I guess, you know, like the great thing is if we do a story, then it means that other people learn about it, but it means that we're also learning often by interviewing these people, because these people, you know, are niche deep, they're experts. You know, the guy Sam, you know, spends 6 months of the year, you know, in Central America looking for bees and stuff. So I think the good thing is it's okay to say, I don't know much about bees, but tell me your expertise. And then we spoke to some beekeepers. One guy, he grew up with 70 beehives, and these kind of people are very good at demystifying, because obviously most of us don't want 70 beehives, but we might want 1 or 2. And therefore, you know, these are people who've done it as hobbies. Sometimes it's not even their thing that they do, but they do it for fun and recreation. And I think the more you can demystify the whole thing around it, because otherwise, I mean, the 2 times I've been stung by bees are when other people freaked out about the bee and started swatting it, and it stung me. So therefore, bees are actually far more benign than people think they are, but it's a bit like snakes. I think snakes and bees, sometimes people have an irrational fear of. So the more I think we can do to show why they're interesting, why they're positive, and you actually have to try quite hard to get stung by a bee, I think will help to demystify them and enable people to, I mean, some places I worked in Dublin, it's the first response if you saw a bee was just to squash it, you know. So therefore, you know, if we can move away from that, then I think that's a win.
Absolutely. And I've also learned a lot about wasps, because I have never been stung by a bee, and I am over 40 years of age, so that's quite a long time to not be stung by a bee. And I have been stung by a wasp twice in my whole entire life. And the reason is that at the start of the season, apparently wasps are going around, they're actually carnivores, so the larvae are, so they go around, they attack you know, flies and small flies. They bring those back to the nest, they feed it to the larvae, and the wasps, actually what they eat is this sweet secretion that the larvae release, right? And so this goes on over the summer. So if you notice, wasps are never really any hassle, right, through June, July, and kind of into mid-August, and then they start to get a bit troublesome. And that's because the larvae have started to, you know, they've all gone to fly the nest as such, and the nest is then empty because they've stopped laying babies, right, at that stage. And so you've now got wasps who have a keen taste for sugar, and there's now none available anymore. They're unemployed, so they have nothing to do because they don't have to feed the larvae, and they're completely bored. So now you've got these wasps looking for sugar. They find sugar in bins and ice creams, and that's why they go around there. And of course, this sugar, all this kind of concentrated sugar that they're getting from ice cream or soft drinks or whatever, is making them drunk. So they're currently drunk and unemployed, and they start to get really annoying at that point. That's what happens at the end of August.
Look, I mean, you see, so and so I've heard that some wasps even pollinate flowers too, and then you have hoverflies, which are neither wasps nor bees, but look similar, but you begin to realize that they're in between. And then people say that bees are evolved out of wasps and are like hippies hippie species that evolved out of wasps, because they're no longer meat eating. They're like vegetarian versions of wasps. So I think the more we find this stuff out, the more, you know, to some degree you have to humanize these things to make people understand the story behind them. But by doing that, I think it's fascinating, but it's also engaging as well. And I think when people know this kind of stuff and engage with it, they're more likely to be supportive of the wider reasons to do things to encourage them. So I think it's cool, like you say, about the wasps. And again, with a lot of these things, you will get stung less by wasps, again, if you're not just swatting at them. So yeah, I think it's good, but it's also, there's a lot of stories to work with here.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much, Simon. Really appreciate you joining us, and it's been really informative, and I look forward to seeing what you and Irish Tech News do for the DCs For Bees program.
Cool, thanks very much. I think it's great, and I think it's great you have such an interesting range of ambassadors too, so that you're just going to have different people more interested in different aspects. And I think the wider the range of interest and people, the more people it can reach.